always begins quietly. You do not see the signs at first. The smile, the charm, the way they understand you better than anyone else ever has. And then, slowly, piece by piece, something darker begins to emerge. You notice the manipulation, the control, the way you are drained after every interaction. You realize you have once again attracted a toxic person into your life. And the question echoes endlessly inside you, why me? Why does this keep happening? Carl Jung had an answer. It was not easy, it was not comforting, but it was true. He believed that we are not as innocent as we think. We are not passive victims who just stumble into poisonous relationships by accident. Deep inside, hidden in the shadows of our psyche, there is a force that chooses, a silent magnet that pulls us again and again toward the very people who hurt us. Jung called this the shadow. Everything you deny in yourself, everything you repress, every desire you are ashamed of, every weakness you refuse to see, all of it is locked in that darkness. You live with it every day, even though you pretend it is not there. And life, cruel as it may seem, has a way of dragging it out into the light. Not through books, not through lectures, but through people. Toxic people. Think of it like this. The people you attract are not random strangers chosen by chance. They are mirrors. Dark mirrors. They reflect back to you the parts of yourself you are terrified to admit. If you have never faced your need for control, you will attract those who dominate you. If you bury your own anger, you will meet someone who embodies rage. If you pretend to be endlessly kind, selfless, and pure, you will draw in those who exploit kindness until you break. It is not fair, but it is real. The psyche demands balance, and if you refuse to meet your own shadow willingly, life will force you to meet it through someone else. That is why Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, a fate. That is how it feels, is it not? As if the universe is cursed to keep throwing you into the same cycle. A new face, a new story, but the same outcome: betrayal, manipulation, pain. You say, I always attract the wrong people. But Jung would whisper back, it is not them you are attracting, it is your shadow. And here is the cruel irony: the more you try to escape it, the more it returns. You leave one toxic person, swear you will never repeat the mistake, and yet months later, you find yourself entangled with their twin soul in another body. Different name, same poison. Why? Because running from the shadow does not weaken it. It makes it stronger. The truth is this: you attract what you refuse to face. Like a moth circling fire, you orbit around the flames of your own unhealed wounds. The people who hurt you are drawn to the cracks in your armor. They sense the insecurities you try to bury. They feed on the guilt you never resolved, and the more you pretend you are untouched, the deeper they sink their teeth. This is why your life keeps replaying the same script. The characters change, but the theme remains, because the director is not outside you. The director is the unconscious. And until you wrestle back control of the script, you will keep starring in the same tragedy. But here lies the paradox: toxic people are not only curses, they are also teachers. Brutal teachers. They expose you to your own shadow. They show you what you refuse to see. Every manipulation reveals the parts of you that are naive. Every betrayal reveals your hunger for love at any cost. Every humiliation reveals the secret pride you carried without knowing. It is a painful gift, one you never asked for, one you wish you could return. But Jung would tell you this: the shadow must be integrated, not destroyed. You cannot kill these parts of yourself. You cannot banish them into some eternal exile. You must look them in the eyes. Accept them, befriend them. Otherwise, they will keep haunting you in the shape of toxic people. So ask yourself this: what is it in me that attracts them? Not in a tone of self-blame, self-discovery. Where am I blind? What am I hiding? Where have I given away my power? Toxic people are magnets for your silence, for the places you refuse to defend, for the wounds you never healed. And until you bleed them out in the open, others will gladly rip them open for you. This is the inner war, the war Jung believed every human being must fight. To look inward, into the abyss, and dare to see what lies there. To admit that you too are capable of manipulation, of anger, darkness. Only when you stop pretending to be purely innocent do you stop needing villains to balance the scales. And so the work begins. It is not glamorous. It is not easy. It begins with silence, with sitting alone and facing the thoughts you keep running from, with watching your patterns instead of blaming the world, with daring to say, yes, I have darkness too. Yes, I have weaknesses. Yes, I carry pain that I never acknowledged. The moment you accept this, something changes. The magnet weakens. Toxic people no longer find a home in you, because now the shadow is not ruling you from the dark. It is integrated. It is part of you. You know your anger, so you do not fall prey to another's. You know your loneliness, so you do not cling to those who exploit it. You know your wounds, so you do not let others weaponize them. This is the liberation Jung spoke of. Not a life without pain, not a life without darkness, but a life where your darkness no longer controls you, a life where you see toxic people for what they are, not as fated curses, but as echoes of your own unfinished business. But here is the truth that most never want to admit. You are not only the victim of toxic people. You are also, in subtle ways, the creator of them in your own life, because the human psyche is not passive. It seeks out what it needs for growth, even if that growth feels like destruction. That is why Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Every toxic person who enters your life is an alchemist of pain. They turn your hidden shadow into fire. They force transformation, even if it feels like ruin. Think of the child who grows up in silence, in a home where love is conditional, where attention is scarce. That child buries anger, buries need, buries fear. But those emotions do not disappear. They hide. Years later, that child, now an adult, finds themselves strangely drawn to people who recreate the same atmosphere. People who withhold love, who make affection a reward, who keep them begging. And they wonder, why do I attract the same kind of person again and again? The answer is brutal. The shadow is trying to complete the story. Life will repeat the lesson until you finally understand it. You can move cities, change friends, end relationships, but if the wound is not faced, the pattern remains. Jung described it as a circle, a cycle of fate that loops until consciousness breaks it. You cannot outrun what you refuse to confront, and the more you deny it, the more it hunts you down. That is why some people say, I attract narcissists. I attract manipulators. I attract abusers. But the deeper truth is this: you attract unfinished business. You attract what you never healed. Narcissists come to those who deny their own pride. Manipulators come to those who deny their own hunger for control. Abusers come to those who deny their own suppressed rage. Life does not bring them to you because you deserve pain. Life brings them because your soul demands awakening. And awakening is never soft. It does not arrive with comfort. It arrives with fire, with chaos, with shattered illusions. It burns away the lies you told yourself about who you are. Because you told yourself you are endlessly giving. And so you attract the taker, until you admit your giving was also a disguise for fear of abandonment. You told yourself you are endlessly patient, and so you attract the tormentor, until you admit patience can also be cowardice. You told yourself you are endlessly kind, and so you attract cruelty, until you admit kindness without boundaries is not virtue, self-betrayal. Do you see the pattern? Toxic people rip away the masks you wear. They reveal the truth you kept hidden even from yourself. That is why you feel powerless in their presence. They are not just attacking you. They are exposing you. And deep down, a part of you knows it. That is why it hurts so much, not only because of what they do, but because of what they awaken. The shadow is clever. It does not confront you directly. It uses others as messengers. That is why Jung warned us, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Read that again slowly. The irritation you feel is not random. The disgust you feel, the anger, the helplessness. All of it points to something in you that has been ignored. Let us make it simple. If someone's arrogance enrages you beyond measure, it may be because you buried your own desire to be confident, bold, unapologetic. If someone's cruelty shatters you, it may be because you never acknowledged your own hidden capacity for aggression. If someone's lies destroy you, it may be because you have lied to yourself for years. Every toxic person is a messenger carrying a brutal mirror, and most people smash the mirror instead of asking what it reflects. But what if, instead of asking, "Why do they treat me this way?" you asked, "Why does this wound me so deeply? What part of me does this reveal?" That is the shift. That is the beginning of transformation, because now you are no longer a passive victim waiting for fate to punish you again. You are an active seeker using every toxic encounter as a map to your own unconscious. And once you start seeing the map, everything changes. You no longer see the toxic person as a curse, but as a signal. You no longer feel doomed, but awakened. Yes, they may hurt you. Yes, they may leave scars. But every scar is a page of your story, a reminder of what you must no longer deny. This is where the darkness becomes power. Because Jung never said you should destroy your shadow. He said you must integrate it. And integration is not about becoming pure light. It is about embracing the darkness within you and owning it so no one else can weaponize it against you. You admit your anger, so it does not explode unconsciously. You admit your selfishness, so it does not turn into self-sabotage. You admit your pride, so it does not hide under false humility. You admit your hunger for control, so you can use it with wisdom instead of letting others dominate you. When you do this, toxic people lose their grip. They may still appear, but you no longer play the same role. You no longer get entangled in their drama because their hooks no longer find a place to stick. You see their manipulation for what it is. You hear their lies, but they do not blind you. You feel their charm, but it does not seduce you. Because now you have integrated your shadow, and when you own your darkness, no one else can control it. This takes courage, terrifying courage. Because the hardest thing in the world is to admit that you are not only victim, not only innocent, not only good. The hardest thing is to face the monster inside you and say, yes, this too is me. But once you do, the monsters outside lose their power, because no predator can scare the person who has already walked through their own abyss. The truth is, you will always encounter toxic people. The world is full of them. Some wear masks of charm, others drip with venom from the start. But the real difference is not whether they exist. It is whether you are still vulnerable to them, and vulnerability is not weakness. It is blindness. It is the unhealed wound, the ignored shadow, the secret hunger you refuse to acknowledge. Once you see it, once you own it, power shifts. You stop asking, why do they do this to me? And you start asking, why do I allow it? Why does this pattern live inside me? And slowly, painfully, you begin to rewrite the script. You no longer play the victim. You no longer wait for rescuers. You stand as your own protector, because you have walked into your own shadow and emerged alive. It is here, in this transformation, that you discover something Jung hinted at, but rarely stated directly. The shadow is not only the source of your pain, it is also the source of your strength. The anger you buried can become fuel for boundaries. The pride you denied can become dignity. The selfishness you suppressed can become self-respect. The darkness you feared can become power. When you integrate the shadow, what once attracted predators now attracts respect. And this is why you kept attracting toxic people for so long. Not because you were cursed, not because the universe hated you, but because your psyche demanded wholeness. Every toxic relationship was a riddle, a test, a brutal initiation into self-knowledge. You were never meant to stay broken. You were meant to awaken. But here lies the final paradox. When you truly face your shadow, when you integrate it, when you grow, you no longer resent the past. You no longer see yourself as a victim of cruel fate. Instead, you begin to see every toxic person as a stepping stone, every wound as a doorway, every scar as a map, and you whisper, not with pride, but with quiet power, they did not break me. They revealed me. So the next time you ask, why do I keep attracting toxic people? Remember Jung's answer. You attract them because they carry your shadow. You attract them because they force you to see what you refuse to see. You attract them until you are strong enough to stand in front of the mirror without fear. And when you finally do, the cycle ends. The curse dissolves. You walk forward, not as prey, not as victim, but as a whole human being. And maybe that is what this life is about. Not purity, not perfection, but wholeness, to carry both the light and the dark within you, without shame, to walk among wolves without being devoured, to know your own abyss so no one else can drag you into it. Because in the end, Jung was right. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. If this made you think deeply, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe for more.